Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tackling something pretty substantial.
Yeah, a big one.
We're trying to piece together the incredibly complex story of Rachel Meghan Markle, her life, her career, and that huge shift into becoming the Duchess of Sussex.
And beyond, really.
Exactly. From American actress to British royalty, and now, maybe more than anything, a global media player and entrepreneur.
It's definitely a story that needs a deep dive, like you said, because, the sources cover these massive shifts, not just in jobs, but in her whole public identity. It's a real transformation.
Right. It's not just a simple biography.
No, definitely not. We're looking at, I think, a kind of strategic evolution. And to get it, you really need to look at it in phases.
Okay, so how should we break it down?
I think 4 main parts make sense. First, her early life, that initial activism, the acting career, the foundations.
Right before everything changed.
Then that intense, pretty short period as a working royal from about 2018 to 2020. Third, the big stepping back moment and the launch of Archewell. That's crucial.
Her pivot point.
Exactly. And finally, this current phase, the entrepreneurial, media-focused era we're seeing now, post-2020.
That structure feels right. Because if you only look at her as, say, the actress from Suits, or only through the royal lens...
You miss the bigger picture.
Yeah, you miss that thread, that drive that seems to connect all these different stages. So our goal here is really to connect those dots, using just the material we have in front of us, to understand how the woman who left the royal family is now, well, using that global platform the crown kind of gave her.
Yeah, inadvertently or not, it's about understanding the current setup by looking at where it all started. So let's dive in. Los Angeles, right?
Let's go back to the beginning. Okay, so the absolute basics. Rachel Meghan Markle, born August 4th, 1981, Canoga Park, Los Angeles. But her identity, which became such a huge part of her story later, it was complicated right from the start.
It really was. She explicitly identifies as mixed race. Her father, Thomas Markle Sr., Caucasian, and her mother, Doria Ragland, African-American. She's often quoted as saying, I'm half black and half white.
And her parents split up quite early.
Yeah, when she was 6. She grew up mostly in L.A., and the sources are clear she has a very close relationship with her mother.
Which contrasts sharply with her father and half-siblings.
Very sharply. Estranged is the word used. And that estrangement, as we know from all the media coverage and legal stuff later, became a massive, massive point of contention.
And her father's job gave her a glimpse into the world she'd later enter.
Yeah, he was a successful lighting director, director of photography, so she actually spent some time on sets as a kid. Apparently, she visited the set of Married with Children sometimes.
Wow. That must have been an interesting education in showbiz.
A unique perspective, for sure. It gave her a kind of front-row seat to the industry machine.
So, moving into her school years, we see these early signs of advocacy, long before the UN speeches or anything like that.
Absolutely. She went to Immaculate Heart High School, which is an all-girls Catholic school, and there's that story, which is pretty well known now.
The Procter & Gamble letter.
Exactly. At 11 years old, she and her classmates wrote to Procter & Gamble about a dish soap ad. They lobbied them to change the language to be gender neutral. And they actually did it.
That's incredible. At 11.
It really is. It shows this this focus on language, on equity, and frankly, an understanding of how to make change happen, even back then.
That focus seems to carry through to university. She went to Northwestern.
Yeah, a top school. Graduated in 2003, double major in theater and international studies. So not just acting, but this serious interest in global affairs, too.
Which almost took her down a completely different path, right?
Almost. She actually pursued politics or diplomacy first, got an internship at the U.S. Embassy in Buenos Aires, junior press officer.
Wow.
Yeah, she even thought about taking the Foreign Service Officer test, aiming for the State Department, but apparently she didn't score quite high enough to go down that route.
Imagine how different things might have been.
Totally different trajectory. So she pivoted back to acting.
And that early acting career, it sounds like the classic Hollywood struggle.
Yeah.
But with this added layer related to her identity.
Yeah, she talked about it being tough to get roles, specifically because she was mixed race.
How did you put it?
She described herself as ethnically ambiguous, said she wasn't black enough for the black roles and not white enough for the white ones, caught in the middle.
So that forced her to really hustle for work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Any work she could find. And we know she did the usual teenage jobs, waitress, nanny, yogurt shop.
Right.
But what's really interesting and I think telling are the side gigs mentioned in the sources.
The creative ones.
Yeah. freelance calligraphy,
Yeah.
teaching bookbinding. These weren't just random jobs, they were skilled crafts.
And resourceful.
Incredibly resourceful. It shows this ability to generate income in different ways using specific skills. And you can kind of see a line from that to, the multi-platform Archewell set up years later. It's about strategic independence.
Okay, so specific roles. Her first screen credit was General Hospital.
Yeah, as a nurse. Interestingly, a show her father had also worked on.
And then the one people might remember before Suits, Deal or No Deal.
Right, she was one of the briefcase girls, did 34 episodes between 2006 and 2007. It paid the bills.
Until the big one, Suits.
That was the game changer. Playing Rachel Zane, the paralegal, started in 2011, stayed for 7 seasons.
And that meant relocating, right?
Pretty much. Living in Toronto for 9 months a year for filming, that's a serious commitment.
And this is where she started earning serious money as an actress.
Oh, definitely. The sources estimate around $50,000 per episode, which, works out to roughly $450,000 a year just from the show.
Plus film work on the side.
Yeah, she did some films during that time, too. Got paid $187,000 for Remember Me, about $171,000 for The Candidate.
And she had other income streams even then.
Mm-hmm. Before she shut down her social media and her lifestyle blog, The Pig.
Right, The Tig.
Yeah. Estimates suggest she was making around $80,000 a year just from endorsements and things like that. So the key takeaway here is she was already successful, financially independent, and pretty business savvy long before royalty came into the picture.
Okay, so now we get to the chapter that really put her on the global stage in a totally different way. But before Prince Harry, her personal life wasn't really tabloid fodder, was it?
Not really, no. She was successful, independent. She dated Trevor Engelson, a film producer, for quite a while, since 2004.
They got married.
Yeah, married in Jamaica in 2011, but then divorced in 2014. After that, she dated Corey Vitiello, a chef, but that ended in May 2016. Pretty standard stuff for someone in her position. Nothing prepared her for what came next.
Which started just a couple of months later, mid-2016, meeting Prince Harry.
Reportedly through Instagram initially, then a blind date was set up in July 2016.
And things moved fast. It got intense, really fast.
Unbelievably fast. The relationship went public in November 2016, and just 8 days later, 8 days, Harry released that statement through his communications secretary.
Which was pretty unusual, right? That kind of official statement.
Highly unusual, directly calling out the media abuse, the internet trolls, the wave of abuse and harassment she was already facing. It showed he was protective, definitely, but it also just underlined the insane pressure they were under from day one.
Their first big public outing together was the Invictus Games.
September 2017, yeah. And the engagement wasn't far behind. Announced November 27th, 2017.
And that meant huge changes for her, personally and professionally.
Massive. Retirement from acting announced immediately. Started the process of becoming a British citizen.
And there were religious steps, too.
Yes. She was baptized and confirmed into the Church of England in March 2018, ahead of the wedding.
Which was May 19, 2018, St. George's Chapel, a global event.
Absolutely huge. Redefined the modern royal wedding in many ways.
And there was that detail that came out later about a private ceremony.
Ah, yes. Her claim about exchanging vows privately with the Archbishop of Canterbury in their garden 3 days before the official wedding.
But that wasn't legally binding.
No, the Archbishop later clarified it wasn't a legal ceremony. But the fact they wanted that private moment, separate from the public spectacle, maybe says something about their relationship with the institution versus their personal connection.
Marriage meant titles, of course.
Instantly. Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Sussex, also Countess of Dumbarton and Baroness Kilkeel. And interestingly, she's the first person ever to hold the title Duchess of Sussex.
And she got her own coat of arms.
She did, designed specifically to reflect her background. Blue for the Pacific Ocean, golden rays for California sunshine, and quills, representing communication, words a nod to her writing and advocacy, presumably. Very personalized.
So newly married, where did they live? They didn't stay at Kensington Palace long, did they?
Started off small, relatively speaking, at Nottingham Cottage, which is on the Kensington Palace grounds. Then they moved to Frogmore Cottage in Windsor.
And that move caused a stir. The refurbishment costs.
Yeah, that was the first big public money controversy for them. The Crown Estate handled the refurbishment using funds from the sovereign grant. That's the money the government gives the monarch for official duties and upkeep.
How much was it?
The figure reported was £2.4 million. And there was significant public backlash about using taxpayer money for what was seen as a private home.
So how did they deal with that?
Well, eventually, Prince Harry repaid the sovereign grant for all the costs that went beyond basic restoration and maintenance. The sources say the repayment was offset against rent they were due to pay anyway, but the point is they paid it back.
An attempt to manage the optics, maybe.
Definitely. Trying to show some accountability, especially with the tabloids scrutinizing every penny.
And amidst all this, they were starting their family.
Right. Son Archie, born May 2019, then daughter Lilibet in June 2021.
The sources also mentioned some difficult personal experiences around that time, too.
Yeah, she spoke publicly about suffering a miscarriage in July 2020 and also having postpartum preeclampsia after Lilibet was born. A lot of intensity packed into those years, public and private.
Which all leads up to the break, January 2020.
The announcement that shook the foundations, stepping back from senior royal roles, Megxit, as the press instantly called it.
Their stated aim was to balance their time.
Yeah, between the UK and North America, find a new way to work.
But the specifics got ironed out later, right, in the formal review.
Exactly. The key points confirmed in March 2021 were they'd stop doing official royal duties, stop receiving the associated public funding, confirming that financial independence goal.
But they kept the HRH titles.
They retained them, yes, Her Royal Highness, His Royal Highness, but they agreed not to use them. That was a crucial part of the deal.
So, technically royal, but not functionally royal in the same way.
Pretty much, a unique status. Their last official gig as a working royal couple was the Commonwealth Day service, March 9th, 2020.
And then they left the UK.
Moved to Southern California initially and then bought their current home in Montecito, that big estate, Ribbon Rock, in June 2020. That royal chapter slammed shut, and the next one began almost immediately.
So this next phase is all about building something new, outside the royal structure.
Yeah.
And the heart of that is Archewell.
Archewell Inc., yeah. And it's important to understand what it is and isn't. It's not just a typical foundation.
Okay.
It's based in Beverly Hills, and it's set up as this hybrid organization, mixes for-profit businesses with not-for-profit work.
And the name, Archewell.
Very symbolic. Inspired by the Greek word arch, which means source of action. Apparently that word also inspired their son Archie's name. So it's all about purpose, origins, driving action.
But it's not just about purpose. There's some serious business structure behind it. The sources mention multiple companies being set up.
Oh, yeah. Right after stepping back, early 2020, they incorporated like 11 different companies and a trust, all in Delaware.
Delaware. Why Delaware? That sounds specific.
It's very specific. Delaware is known for its corporate-friendly laws, lower taxes, strong privacy protections for company owners. It's where huge corporations set up shop for those reasons. It's sometimes called a domestic tax haven.
So this wasn't a casual setup. This was high-level corporate strategy from the get-go.
Absolutely. Companies like Orinoco Publishing, Pika Publishing, these are likely set up to hold specific assets like book rights, media rights, keeping everything compartmentalized and legally protected.
That level of planning, right away, it kind of contrasts with the narrative of just wanting privacy, doesn't it?
It suggests a dual track, maybe?
Yeah.
Seeking personal privacy while simultaneously building a very public, very protected commercial empire.
And that empire quickly attracted massive deals, Netflix being the biggest.
Huge. Signed in September 2020, a 5-year deal, reportedly worth a lot of money. And our sources say it was renewed in August 2025. That's the bedrock of their media output.
What came out of that deal?
Well, the big one was the docuseries Harry and Meghan in 2022. Caused a global stir, gave their side of the royal exit. More recently, there's the lifestyle series With Love, Meghan, which premiered in 2025 and apparently got renewed right away. So the Meghan brand clearly still has pulling power on screen.
But not everything worked out with Netflix.
No. There was that animated series, Pearl. She was executive producing, pitched it back in 2018, about a young girl inspired by historical women. Netflix canceled it in May 2022, part of wider cuts they were making.
And the audio side, with Spotify, that also hit a snag.
Yeah, that was interesting. Big multi-year deal announced December 2020 for Archewell Audio. Her podcast Archetypes launched August 2022.
I remember that. Lots of big-name guests.
Yeah, Serena Williams, Mariah Carey. But it only ran for one season, 12 episodes. The whole Spotify deal was officially canned in June 2023.
Shows that even their names don't guarantee success for every project.
Exactly. Needs more than just brand recognition to sustain these things long term.
But publishing seems more consistently successful for her. The Bench.
Her children's book, came out in 2021, based on her view of Harry's relationship with Archie.
How was that received?
Critically, a bit mixed. Some found it a bit sentimental. But commercially, huge success. Went straight to #1 on the New York Times bestseller list for children's picture books.
That Meghan effect again?
Absolutely. It translates interest into sales, whatever the reviews say.
Beyond these big media deals, she's also moving into investments in consumer brands.
Reversifying, yeah. Back in December 2020, she invested in Clever Blends, a coffee company.
Okay.
More recently, it looks like a focus on lifestyle, ethical brands. August 2024, an investment in Sesta Collective, that's a handbag brand using weavers in Rwanda. November 2024, investing in a hair care line called Highbrow Hippie.
And then her own big brand launch, American Riviera Orchard, or rather, as ever.
Right, it got renamed pretty quickly in early 2025. Seems like a strategic tweak, maybe for broader appeal or clarity. But yeah, that's her personal lifestyle brand, tapping into that whole Montecito aesthetic.
So the output continues. More Netflix shows planned.
2 more announced, one on lifestyle, one on polo. And she's launching another podcast series, Confessions of a Female Founder, with Lemonada Media in March 2025. It doesn't stop.
And to manage all this, you need top representation.
Definitely. They signed with the Harry Walker Agency for speaking gigs back in June 2020, and she personally signed with WME William Morris Endeavor in April 2023. That's a huge Hollywood talent agency.
These aren't the moves of someone stepping back from the spotlight, are they?
They're the moves of someone building a major global business, needing that top-tier infrastructure to run it.
Okay, let's talk about the advocacy side. Because this wasn't something that just started when she became royal.
No, not at all. She had a track record well before Harry. She was involved with One Young World as a counselor from 2014. Global ambassador for World Vision Canada, traveled to Rwanda for their clean water campaign. Worked with UN Women as an advocate.
And she wrote about specific issues too, like menstrual health.
Yeah, penned an op-ed for Time magazine about that in 2017. Focused on issues that often get overlooked.
Though even that early advocacy faced some scrutiny. The UN speech.
Ah, yes. The sources mention that her 2015 speech for UN Women included lines very similar, almost identical, to a speech Eleanor Roosevelt gave back in 1951.
So questions about originality versus maybe borrowing influence.
Exactly. Is it paying homage, amplifying a message, or is it something else? That kind of tension, authenticity versus strategy, seems to be a recurring theme.
Once she was in the royal family, her first big UK charity project was very specific.
Very specific and very community-focused. Tied to the Grenfell Tower fire tragedy, she collaborated with survivors from the Hub Community Kitchen.
The cookbook Together.
Together. Our community cookbook, published in 2018. A really practical project.
And the money raised went to specific causes.
Yeah, the proceeds were distributed quite strategically. £8,000 went to My Grateful, which helps refugees in the UK. £10,000 to Himma, which runs food banks. And importantly, the Shalom Kitchen, a joint Muslim and Jewish community kitchen, shows that targeted approach to philanthropy.
Then, after stepping back and returning to the U.S., that political neutrality required of royals that went out the window.
Completely. We saw her find her political voice again. And remember, before she married Harry, she'd been pretty outspoken.
Right, she'd criticized Trump in 2016.
Yep, and expressed disappointment about Brexit the same year. She even recommended a Noam Chomsky book, Who Rules the World, in 2017. Pretty overtly political stuff.
Things she absolutely could not have said as a working royal.
No way. So back in the U.S., she jumped back in, urged voter registration ahead of the 2020 election. Many saw that as implicitly anti-Trump, pro-Biden, given the context.
Her big policy push seems to have been paid family leave.
Very consistent on that. Wrote that open letter to Schumer and Pelosi in October 2021.
And she used that really specific personal detail, the Sizzler salad bar.
Yeah, saying she grew up relying on a $4.99 Sizzler salad bar. It was a way to frame her support, grounding it in an experience of, financial pressure, making it relatable.
Was her lobbying just focused on Democrats?
Interestingly, no. She actually reached out to Republican senators, too. Specifically mentioned are Shelley Moore Capito and Susan Collins, trying to position paid leave as a bipartisan issue, even though it's pretty polarized in the U.S.
She also supported other causes.
Yeah, voiced support for Ketanji Brown Jackson's Supreme Court nomination, partnered with Moms Demand Action on gun safety laws, more overtly progressive stances.
And all this advocacy, combined with her profile, translates into actual economic power, the Meghan effect.
It's undeniable, a real economic phenomenon. Remember the Strathberry handbag story from 2017?
She carried one, and sales exploded.
Orders just soared for the Scottish brand. When she announced her pregnancy wearing a dress by Karen Gee, an Australian designer, The designer's website crashed from the traffic. That's serious influence.
And she used that influence for charity while she was a royal, too.
Very effectively. Guest editing British Vogue in September 2019, the Forces for Change issue, became the fastest-selling issue in the magazine's history.
Wow.
And then she leveraged that visibility to launch the Smart Set capsule collection.
For the charity SmartWorks.
Right, which helps unemployed women get back into work. It was a buy one, donate one model. The Meghan effect was so strong, the collection provided enough clothes for the charity for an entire year in just 10 days.
10 days? That's incredible speed.
It really shows the power she wields commercially and how it can be harnessed, which explains the recognition she's received. Time 100 Most Influential in 2018 and 2021, FT's 25 Most Influential Women in 2022.
Okay, we can't really talk about her story without diving into the intense scrutiny, the controversies, and her legal battles against the press. The biggest one was the case against Associated Newspapers, right?
Definitely the most high profile. That lawsuit against the publishers of the Mail on Sunday, filed in 2019, it was all about them publishing parts of that private letter she wrote to her father.
The very personal letter.
Handwritten, very personal. The legal fight was long, very bitter, but she ultimately won. In 2021, the High Court ruled, and the Court of Appeal upheld, that the newspaper had invaded her privacy and infringed her copyright.
And the damages awarded were?
Mostly, yes. Just £1 for the privacy invasion. That wasn't about the money. It was about the principle, the legal acknowledgement of the breach.
But there was a separate payment for copyright.
Yeah, confidential, presumably much larger, sum for the copyright infringement. And A&L had to print that front-page statement acknowledging her win on Boxing Day 2021, a significant victory for her.
But during that same case, something came out that complicated the privacy narrative. The Finding Freedom biography.
Right. She'd initially denied cooperating with the authors of that unauthorized but generally positive biography, but then she had to admit later in the court process that her aide, Jason Nauf,
Her communications secretary at the time.
yes, he had provided information to the authors with her knowledge and approval, specific points she wanted included.
And the newspaper used that against her.
A&L definitely jumped on it, argued it showed she was selective about privacy, fighting tooth and nail against negative coverage, while simultaneously, feeding information for positive stories through back channels. It highlights that tricky balance between controlling your narrative and genuinely seeking privacy.
She won other legal battles, too, against paparazzi.
Yes, successful actions against Splash News and another agency, X17. These were over unauthorized photos, drone shots, helicopter shots of her and Archie at their private homes, both in the UK and later in Montecito. She drew a hard line on protecting her family's private space, and that led to a pretty radical stance against certain newspapers.
The Zero Engagement Policy, announced in 2020, basically cutting off 4 specific British tabloids, the Daily Mail, the Sun, Daily Mirror, and the Daily Express, along with formal warnings about harassment. That's a declaration of war, really, in PR terms. This confrontational approach extended to the Oprah interview fallout, too, with Piers Morgan.
Yeah, after the interview aired in 2021, and Piers Morgan made those comments questioning her mental health struggles and claims of suicidal thoughts. She complained directly to the CEO of ITV, the network that aired his show. Her complaint was one factor in the huge number, over 57,000 official complaints to Ofcom, the UK regulator, about his comments.
That Oprah interview itself was explosive.
Yeah.
Her claims about lack of support, contemplating suicide.
It polarized global opinion. Damaging claims against the institution met with strong defenses from others.
And just before that interview aired, another controversy blew up. The bullying allegations.
Timing was everything, wasn't it? Claims surfaced, originating from Jason Nauf again, back in 2018. He alleged her behavior had led to 2 personal assistants quitting and had undermined a 3rd staff member.
How did the palace respond?
Buckingham Palace took it seriously enough to hire an outside law firm to investigate. Apparently, around 10 former staffers cooperated.
Was the report ever published?
No. The palace announced they had reviewed the situation and made changes to HR policies, but they kept the report itself confidential, citing the need to protect the privacy of those involved.
And her response?
Her team vehemently denied the allegations, called it a calculated smear campaign, timed specifically to discredit her right before the Oprah interview aired. So you're left with these 2 starkly different narratives.
But is the narrative of widespread public dislike accurate? There's data suggesting otherwise.
That's a really important point from the sources. Studies, like one from Bot Sentinel, analyzed online negativity. They found evidence suggesting a lot of it might be coordinated.
Coordinated. How?
Well, Bot Sentinel estimated that maybe 70% of the negative content about Harry and Meghan originated from a relatively small number of accounts, just 83 highly active, interconnected accounts.
Wow, only 83.
Yeah, if that's accurate, it suggests the public backlash might be significantly amplified, maybe even manufactured, by a small but dedicated group rather than reflecting genuine, broad public opinion.
Even the royal family seemed to acknowledge the level of online abuse.
They did. They brought in new social media guidelines in 2019, specifically aimed at curbing the abuse directed at both Meghan and Catherine, Duchess of Cambridge.
Still, some high-profile individual attacks continued. Jeremy Clarkson's column.
That 2022 column in The Sun was shocking, saying he hated her on a cellular level, describing violent fantasies. It crossed a line for many.
What was the official outcome of that?
IPSO, the UK press regulator, investigated. They ruled the column was sexist, used derogatory language about her sex, but they rejected claims it constituted harassment or was racially discriminatory. So, a mixed ruling, but the damage was done.
And even now, after leaving the royal fold, there are conflicting reports about her working style.
Yeah, recent reports mention varied experiences from staff who've worked with her at Archewell. Some describe her as lovely, genuine. Others apparently found her cold, withholding. There are mentions of staff needing time off, even therapy after working there. It suggests a high-pressure environment, perhaps. Consistent scrutiny follows her.
Lastly, that trip to Nigeria in May 2024, that seemed different.
It was interesting. It was part of honoring the Invictus Games. She spoke about discovering she has 43% Nigerian ancestry, received chieftaincy titles Edamazi Adedekumbo.
And it got a lot of positive press, didn't it?
Yeah, extensive, largely positive international coverage. And it immediately sparked discussion. Could that hybrid model they originally wanted, mixing some official duties with commercial independence, have actually worked?
Could it have benefited the crown, even?
That was the question being asked. Seeing the global interest they generated on that trip made some people wonder if the monarchy missed an opportunity by not finding a way to keep them partially involved.
So when you pull it all together, from the young actress doing calligraphy on the side to make ends meet,
Right.
to this global figure heading up Archewell, managing these huge Netflix deals, building brands for Montecito via Delaware companies, what's the through line?
I think it's that relentless drive, maybe, and a real focus on strategic control, whether it's controlling her career, her finances, her public image, or fighting legally for her privacy.
It's been an absolutely massive journey. Huge highs, like the bestseller book, The Charity Impact, and incredibly difficult lows. The online hate, the family estrangement playing out publicly, those intense legal fights.
Before we wrap up with a final thought, there's one last little knowledge nugget from the sources that's quite unexpected.
Oh, yeah.
In 2021, she and Prince Harry actually received an award, the Change Champions Award, from a UK charity called Population Matters.
Population matters. Why?
Specifically for their decision to have only 2 children. The charity framed it as a choice, contributing to a smaller, more sustainable global population.
Wow. Okay, that adds another layer to their public positioning, framing a private family decision as global advocacy.
Exactly. Very on brand in a way.
All right, so let's leave our listeners with something to think about, pulling all this together.
Yeah.
Here's the provocation.
Okay.
The Duchess's life, especially since leaving the UK, seems defined by these two powerful, almost contradictory forces. On one side, you have constant, expensive legal action. Remember the one-town damages?
Yeah.
The Drone lawsuits, all fiercely protecting her privacy.
The legal firewall.
But on the other side, you have this simultaneous massive increase in public output. Books, podcasts, Netflix shows, the As Ever brand. It's relentless.
Right. More public-facing than ever in some ways.
So the question for you, the listener, is, what does the highly planned, commercially driven, corporately shielded nature of her current public life, this global brand run from Montecito, structured through Delaware, actually tell us about what stepping back from the public eye really means in today's world? Can you truly step back?
Or is it more about stepping out of one kind of public life, the institutional royal one, and stepping into another, perhaps equally public but commercially controlled one? Is that the only way to operate at that level of fame?
Yeah, question to ponder. Thank you for joining us for the deep dive.
Until next time.